The sun rose over Comins Pond on June 27, 2000, casting golden ripples across the water, just as it had every summer morning for decades. The small beach in Warren, Massachusetts, seemed frozen in time, a postcard-perfect slice of small-town America, where children's laughter echoed across the water and lifeguards perched on their white wooden towers like sentinels of summer safety. But this morning would be different. This morning, evil had already arrived at Comins Pond. At 10:20 a.m., Molly Bish pulled her white Buick into the small gravel parking lot. In the passenger seat sat her 16-year-old daughter Molly, blonde hair catching the morning light, ready for another day of her summer job as a lifeguard. It was Molly's second year watching over the swimmers at this quiet pond, a job she loved and took seriously. As Molly gathered her things, her radio first aid kit and lunch, something caught her mother's attention. A man sat alone in a white car parked near the beach, smoking a cigarette. He appeared to be watching them. The sight unsettled Magi in a way she couldn't quite explain, a mother's instinct whispering that something was wrong. "Do you want me to wait with you until the other lifeguards arrive?" Magi asked, though she knew Molly would refuse. At 16, Molly was responsible and independent, the kind of teenager parents dreamed of raising. "I'll be fine, Mom," Molly replied, giving her mother a quick kiss goodbye, the last kiss they would ever share. As Magi drove away, glancing in her rearview mirror at her daughter walking toward the lifeguard station, she couldn't shake the image of the man in the white car. She would later describe this moment as the one that haunts her most, the terrible knowledge that she had left her daughter with a predator, though she wouldn't know it until it was too late. Molly's radio crackled with unanswered calls. Her shoes sat neatly on the sand. Her first aid kit lay unopened, but Molly Anne Bish had vanished without a trace. To understand the magnitude of what was lost that June morning, you have to understand who Molly Bish was. She wasn't just another teenager working a summer job. She was the embodiment of everything good about small-town America. A young woman whose light seemed to shine brighter than most. Born on August 2, 1983, Molly was the youngest of 3 children in the Bish family. Her parents, John and Magi, had built a solid middle-class life in Warren, a town of just over 5,000 people nestled in the rolling hills of central Massachusetts. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where doors stayed unlocked, and where the worst crime was usually someone fishing without a license. Molly attended David Prouty High School, where she excelled both academically and athletically. She was a star on the softball team, known for her fierce competitive spirit and natural leadership. Her teammates would later describe her as someone who made everyone around her better, who could lighten the mood with a joke or rally the team when they were down. But it was in the water where Molly truly found her calling. She had been swimming since childhood, and by her teens, she was a certified lifeguard and water safety instructor. The job at Comins Pond wasn't just summer employment for Molly, it was a calling. She took the responsibility of keeping people safe seriously, often arriving early and staying late to ensure everything was perfect. She lived for that job, her mother Magi would later recall. She loved being able to help people, to keep kids safe. She was so proud of that lifeguard chair. Molly's supervisor at the pond, Recreation Director Peter Dufresne, remembered her as exceptional. In 20 years of managing lifeguards, I never had one like Molly. She was mature beyond her years, totally reliable, and the kids absolutely loved her. The summer of 2000 was supposed to be special for Molly. She was planning to apply to colleges in the fall, with dreams of studying communications or working with children. She had started dating a boy named Greg, a relationship that made her glow with typical teenage happiness. Her friends described her as being in one of the best periods of her life, confident, happy, and excited about the future. She was also saving money from her lifeguard job for a car. Every day, she would carefully count her earnings and add them to her growing fund. Her parents had promised to match whatever she saved, and by that June, she was getting close to her goal. The white Buick she rode to work in with her mother would soon be replaced by her own independence. But on June 26, 2000, the day before she disappeared, Molly made an offhand comment that would later seem prophetic. She was talking with her friend about their summer jobs when she said, "I just hope nothing bad happens at the pond this summer." I worry sometimes about being out there alone. Her friend laughed it off. After all, what could happen in sleepy Warren, Massachusetts? What could happen at a quiet pond where the biggest excitement was usually a scraped knee or a bee sting? Neither of them could have imagined that something bad had already been planned. Something that would shatter not just the Bish family, but an entire community's sense of safety and innocence. At 10:10 a.m. on Tuesday, June 27, 2000, the Warren Police Department received a call that would change everything. A concerned citizen reported that the lifeguard station at Comins Pond appeared to be abandoned, with personal belongings scattered around but no sign of the lifeguard. Officer Francis Wells was the first to respond. As he pulled into the small parking lot, he could see immediately that something was wrong. The red lifeguard chair sat empty, facing the water. Below it, personal items were arranged in a way that suggested their owner had intended to return. A first aid kit, a water bottle, and most tellingly, a pair of sandals placed side by side in the sand, as if someone had simply stepped out of them. What Officer Welch didn't see was any sign of struggle, no scattered belongings, no drag marks in the sand, no indication of violence. It was as if Molly Bish had simply evaporated into the summer air. The officer immediately radioed for backup and began securing the scene. Within an hour, Comins Pond was swarming with police officers, and by afternoon, the FBI had joined the investigation. The speed of the response reflected the gravity of the situation. Molly Bish received the call at home. "Mrs. Bish," the voice on the other end said carefully, "we need you to come to Comins Pond. Molly isn't here, and we can't locate her." The world tilted on its axis. Magi would later describe that moment as the instant her life split into two parts, before Molly disappeared, and after, everything that came before seemed like someone else's life, viewed through glass. As the Bish family rushed to the pond, the investigation was already in full swing. Police questioned the few people who had arrived at the beach that morning. A mother with young children said she had arrived around 10:40 a.m. and found the lifeguard station empty. A jogger reported seeing nothing unusual during his morning run along the pond's perimeter. But the most crucial witness was Magi herself. When questioned about the morning, she described the man in the white car who had been smoking and watching them. She could provide few details about his appearance: middle-aged, dark hair, average build. But her description of his behavior was chilling in its implication. "He wasn't there for the beach," Magi told investigators. "He was watching us." The realization hit like a physical blow. She had unknowingly delivered her daughter to a predator. As news of Molly's disappearance spread through Warren, the community response was immediate and overwhelming. Neighbors organized search parties. Local businesses closed so employees could join the hunt. The pond and surrounding woods filled with hundreds of volunteers, all looking for any trace of the missing teenager. The Massachusetts State Police established a command post in the parking lot of Comins Pond. The FBI Child Abduction Rapid Deployment Team arrived from Boston. Within 24 hours, what had been a quiet local beach had become the center of one of the largest missing person investigations in Massachusetts history. But as the hours turned to days, and the days turned to weeks, the searches yielded nothing. It was as if Molly Bish had been swallowed by the earth itself. The media attention was intense and immediate. By the second day, satellite trucks lined the roads around Comins Pond. Reporters from Boston, New York, and eventually the national media descended on Warren. The story had all the elements that captivate public attention: a beautiful teenager, a mysterious disappearance, and a family's desperate search for answers. John and Magi Bish found themselves thrust into an unwanted spotlight, having to navigate the delicate balance between keeping their daughter's case in the public eye and protecting their family's privacy during the most difficult time of their lives. "We just want Molly to come home," John told reporters during one of many press conferences. "If someone has her, please let her go. She's just a kid who wanted to help people." But privately, investigators were already beginning to suspect they weren't looking for a missing person. They were looking for a victim of homicide. In the days following Molly's disappearance, the investigation expanded rapidly. The FBI brought in behavioral analysts, forensic experts, and specialists in child abduction cases. Every inch of Comins Pond and the surrounding area was searched with a precision that bordered on obsessive. Divers scoured the pond's murky bottom. Cadaver dogs were brought in to search the woods. Helicopters with thermal imaging equipment flew grid patterns over the forest. The search area expanded in concentric circles, eventually covering hundreds of square miles of central Massachusetts. The investigation revealed troubling details about the area around Comins Pond. The beach was isolated, accessible by a single road that wound through dense woods. There were no security cameras, no regular patrol by police, and during the early morning hours when Molly was alone, no witnesses. It was, investigators realized, a perfect location for a predator to strike. The man in the white car became the focus of intense investigation. Based on Magi's description and the timing, investigators believed he had been conducting surveillance, possibly for days or weeks before the abduction. The fact that he was in position and ready when Molly arrived suggested a level of planning that chilled investigators. Magi worked with a police sketch artist to create a composite drawing of the suspect. The image showed a middle-aged white man with dark hair and sunglasses. While generic in many ways, it was the best lead investigators had. The sketch was distributed nationwide, generating hundreds of tips. Each lead was meticulously investigated. Police checked on known sex offenders in the area, interviewed anyone who had contact with Molly, and followed up on even the most far-fetched possibility. One of the most promising early leads came from a woman who reported seeing a white car speeding away from the Comins Pond area around 10:30 a.m. on the morning of June 27. The timing was perfect, and the direction suggested the vehicle was heading toward one of the major highways that could take someone out of the area quick. But like so many aspects of this case, the lead ultimately led nowhere concrete. As weeks passed without a breakthrough, the investigation began to focus on the possibility that Molly's abductor was someone familiar with the area. The remote location of Comins Pond, the knowledge of Molly's schedule, and the planning evident in the crime all suggested. But privately, both parents were beginning to confront a reality they didn't want to acknowledge. After 2 months with no contact, no sightings, and no concrete leads, the chances of finding Molly alive were diminishing with each passing day. The autumn of 2000 brought a particularly cruel reminder of time's passage. As the new school year began, Molly's classmates returned to David Prouty High School without her. Her empty desk in chemistry class became a daily reminder of her absence. The softball team dedicated their season to their missing teammate, wearing yellow ribbons on their uniforms and leaving an empty spot in the dugout. The homecoming dance was especially painful. Molly had been excited about the dance, planning to go with her boyfriend Greg. Instead, her friends held a candlelight vigil in the school parking lot, praying for her safe return. As winter approached, the intensive daily searches around Comins Pond had to be scaled back. The harsh New England weather made extensive, outdoor searching impossible. The investigation continued, but it moved from the woods and ponds of central Massachusetts to police stations and FBI offices, where investigators pored over evidence and followed up on leads. The holiday season of 2000 was particularly difficult for the Bish family. Christmas had always been Molly's favorite time of year, and her absence left a hole that no amount of family support could fill. Her presence sat wrapped under the tree, waiting for a return that seemed increasingly unlikely. But even as hope faded, the family refused to give up. They continued to believe that somewhere out there, Molly was alive and waiting to come home. They couldn't have known that she was already there, waiting in the woods just 5 miles from where she had disappeared, waiting for someone to find her and bring her home one last time. On May 9, 2003, nearly 3 years after Molly Bish vanished from Comins Pond, a man walking his dog in the woods of Palmer, Massachusetts, made a grim discovery that would finally provide answers to some questions, while raising many others. The walker, whose name was never released to protect his privacy, noticed what appeared to be clothing scattered among the trees. As he investigated further, he found human remains in an advanced state of decomposition. The location was less than 5 miles from Comins Pond, in a heavily wooded area that had been searched multiple times during the initial investigation. The discovery scene told a story that investigators had hoped they would never have to read. The remains were scattered over a small area, consistent with animal activity over several years. Personal items found nearby, including a distinctive yellow bathing suit and jewelry, would later be confirmed as belonging to Molly Bish. The medical examiner's office worked carefully to recover and examine the remains. After nearly 3 years of hoping against hope, the Bish family received the call they had been dreading. Their daughter had been found, and she was dead. The cause of death could not be determined due to the condition of the remains, but the circumstances left no doubt that Molly had been the victim of homicide. The location of the body, combined with the evidence at the scene, painted a picture of a young woman who had been abducted, murdered, and disposed of like garbage in the woods. For the Bish family, the discovery brought a mixture of devastating grief and painful relief. The uncertainty that had tormented them for 3 years was finally over, but the confirmation of their worst fears brought a new kind of anguish. We always held out hope that somehow, some way, Molly would come home to us. Magi Bish said at a press conference following the discovery. Now we know she's never coming home, but at least we can finally lay her to rest. The funeral service for Molly Bish was held on May 17, 2003, at St. Paul's Cathedral in Worcester. The massive Gothic church was packed with mourners, family, friends, classmates, and hundreds of people who had never met Molly but had been touched by her story. The service was a celebration of Molly's life, rather than just a mourning of her death. Her softball teammates served as pallbearers, wearing their varsity jackets. Her classmates filled entire sections of the cathedral. Her teachers spoke of her kindness and potential. Her friends shared memories of her laughter and her dreams. But perhaps the most powerful moment came when the children from Molly's swimming lessons, now 3 years older, stood to sing a song they had learned in her honor, their young voices filling the cathedral with amazing grace brought tears to even the most hardened investigators in attendance. The discovery of Molly's remains brought the investigation full circle, but it also opened new questions. The location where she was found was not random. It was carefully chosen, hidden, but not so remote that the body would never be discovered. This suggested someone with local knowledge, someone who knew the area well. The crime scene analysis revealed few new clues. After 3 years in the elements, most physical evidence had been destroyed. There were no obvious signs of additional victims at the location, ruling out the theory that they were dealing with a serial killer's dump site. But the investigation was far from over. If anything, the discovery of Molly's body gave investigators renewed determination to find her killer. The case was now officially a homicide, bringing additional resources and expertise to bear. The careful disposal indicated planning and a desire to avoid detection. But the eventual discovery suggested the killer may have wanted the body to be found eventually. Most significantly, the analyst noted that the 3-year gap between the crime and the discovery provided the killer with a sense of security. He likely believed he had gotten away with murder. The psychological profile would prove crucial in the investigation that followed. The discovery of Molly's remains marked the end of one chapter in the story, but the beginning of another. Warren, Massachusetts, and the broader community that had rallied around the Bish family during the search now had to grapple with the reality that a killer had walked among them and might still be out there. The impact on the small town was profound and lasting. Parents who had once allowed their children to walk to school alone now drove them everywhere. The innocent trust that had characterized small-town life was replaced by vigilance and suspicion. Everyone became a potential suspect, every stranger a possible threat. Comins Pond itself became a different place. The beach where children had once played freely became a crime scene that many found too painful to visit. The town eventually closed the public beach, unable to maintain the site where such horror had occurred. But from this tragedy, something positive emerged. The Molly Bish Foundation, established during the search, continued its work helping other families of missing children. The foundation provided financial assistance for search efforts, emotional support for families, and advocacy for better systems to find missing persons. Molly Bish became a nationally recognized advocate for missing children's cases. She testified before Congress about the need for better coordination between law enforcement agencies in missing person cases. She worked with other families facing similar tragedies, providing the kind of support she wished she had received. The foundation also worked to improve safety at public recreation areas. They advocated for better security measures, emergency communication systems, and training for staff who work with children in isolated locations. "We can't bring Molly back," Molly told a gathering of law enforcement officials, "but maybe we can prevent this from happening to another family." The case also led to changes in law enforcement procedures. The rapid response to Molly's disappearance became a model for other agencies. The coordination between local police, state authorities, and federal agents was studied and replicated in other jurisdictions. Meanwhile, the investigation into Molly's murder continued. Investigators re-interviewed witnesses, re-examined evidence, and followed up on tips that continued to come in. The case remained active, but as months and then years passed without an arrest, it began to take on the characteristics of a cold case. The 10th anniversary of Molly's disappearance in 2010 brought renewed media attention to the case. Television shows featured her story, newspapers ran retrospective articles, and law enforcement agencies issued new appeals for information. But perhaps the most touching memorial came from an unexpected source. The children who had been in Molly's swimming classes at the time of her disappearance were now teenagers themselves. They organized a memorial swim at a pool in Worcester, raising money for the foundation and keeping Molly's memory alive for a new generation. One of these young people, now 17, spoke at the event. "Molly taught me to swim when I was 6 years old. She was patient and kind, and she made me feel safe in the water. I think about her every time I swim, and I try to help other kids the way she helped me." It was a reminder that while Molly's life had been cut tragically short, her impact continued to ripple outward, touching lives she would never know about. For nearly 2 decades after Molly's murder, the case remained frustratingly unsolved. Investigators followed thousands of leads, interviewed hundreds of potential suspects, and analyzed every piece of evidence multiple times. The case file grew to thousands of pages, but the killer remained elusive. The passage of time brought both hope and despair. Advances in forensic science offered new possibilities for analyzing old evidence. DNA technology improved dramatically, making it possible to extract genetic material from samples that had previously yielded no results. But time also meant that witnesses died, memories faded, and physical evidence deteriorated. Each passing year made the case harder to solve, not easier. The Bish family never gave up hope for justice. They continued to work with investigators, provide interviews to journalists, and keep Molly's case in the public eye. They endured countless false hopes as potential suspects were identified and then ruled out. In 2016, there was a significant development in the case. Advances in DNA technology allowed investigators to extract a genetic profile from evidence found at the crime scene. While this didn't immediately identify the killer, it provided a powerful tool for comparison against suspects. The development led to renewed investigation of several potential suspects, including individuals who had been considered early in the case but couldn't be definitively ruled in or out. The DNA evidence eliminated some suspects and focused attention on others. But even with this breakthrough, the case remained unsolved. The DNA profile didn't match any individual in the national database, suggesting the killer had never been arrested for a serious crime, at least not one that required DNA collection. The 20th anniversary of Molly's disappearance in 2020 brought another wave of media attention. Podcasts dedicated episodes to her case, documentary filmmakers expressed interest story, and law enforcement agencies renewed their appeals for information. By this time, the case had touched multiple generations. People who had been children when Molly disappeared were now adults with children of their own. The case had become part of the collective memory of Central Massachusetts, a cautionary tale about the fragility of safety and innocence. In September 21, the Massachusetts State Police announced a major development in the Molly Bish case. After more than 2 decades of investigation, they had identified a suspect, Rodney Stanger, a man who had died in 2006, 15 years after Molly's murder. The breakthrough came through a combination of traditional detective work and modern forensic technology. Investigators had been re-examining the case files when they noticed similarities between Molly's case and another unsolved murder from 1989. In that case, a young woman named Holly Piirainen had been abducted and killed in a nearby town. Both cases involved young blonde women taken from isolated locations during daylight hours. Both bodies were found in wooded areas months or years later. Both crime scenes showed evidence of careful planning and local knowledge. When investigators compared notes between the two cases, they found another connection. Rodney Stanger had been living in the areas where both crimes occurred at the times they happened. Stanger was not unknown to law enforcement. He had a long criminal history, including assault, breaking and entering, and other violent crimes. He had spent time in prison during the 1980s and 1990s, but was free during the periods when both Holly Piirainen and Molly Bish were killed. The investigation into Stanger revealed a deeply troubled individual with a history of violence against women. He had been married multiple times, with several relationships ending in restraining orders and domestic violence charges. He had been fired from multiple jobs for inappropriate behavior toward female coworkers. Most significantly, investigators discovered that Stanger had worked for a tree removal company that had contracts in the Warren area in 2000. This would have given him both familiarity with the area around Comins Pond and a legitimate reason to be in the vicinity without arousing suspicion. The white work truck he drove. See descriptions of the vehicle seen near Comins Pond on the morning of Molly's disappearance. He had been scheduled to work in Warren that week, though he called in sick on June 27, 2000, the day Molly disappeared. While the evidence against Stanger was circumstantial, it was also compelling. The geographic connections, the timeline, his criminal history, and his opportunity to commit both crimes all pointed in his direction. But there was also a bitter irony to the breakthrough. Stanger had died of cancer in 2006, taking any chance of a confession or trial with him to the grave. If he was indeed Molly's killer, justice, in the traditional sense, would never be possible. On a warm June morning in 2022, 22 years after Molly Bish disappeared from Comins Pond, her family gathered at a small memorial garden that had been created in her honor. The garden sits on a hill overlooking the pond where she spent her last moments, a peaceful place filled with flowers, a bench for quiet reflection, and a plaque that reads, "Molly Anne Bish, beloved daughter, sister and friend. Her light continues to shine." The years have been kind to the memorial. Visitors still come regularly, leaving flowers, notes, and small mementos. Children who never knew Molly leave drawings and letters. Adults who followed her case leave roses and prayers. The garden has become a place of healing, not just for the Bish family, but for a community that was forever changed by her loss. Magi Bish, now in her 70s, still visits regularly. She tends to the flowers, reads the notes left by visitors, and finds peace in this place that connects her to her daughter's memory. The pain of loss never fully goes away, but it has transformed over the years into something else, a determination to honor Molly's life and to help prevent other families from experiencing similar tragedy. The Molly Bish Foundation continues its work, having helped hundreds of families over the past 2 decades. The foundation has contributed to search efforts, provided financial assistance to families in crisis, and advocated for policy changes that make children safer. One of the foundation's most successful programs is the Molly's Angels initiative, which trains lifeguards and recreation workers to recognize signs of potential danger and respond appropriately to suspicious situations. The program has been adopted by recreation departments across New England and has likely prevented other tragedies. The case itself remains officially open, though the identification of Rodney Stanger as the prime suspect has provided a measure of closure for the family and investigators. While there will never be a trial or a conviction, the evidence strongly suggests that the man responsible for Molly's death is dead and can never hurt anyone else. But perhaps the most important part of Molly's legacy is not how she died, but how she lived. The young woman who took her responsibility as a lifeguard so seriously, who dreamed of helping children, who brought light and laughter to everyone she met. That is the Molly Bish who deserves to be remembered. Her story serves as a reminder of the preciousness of life and the importance of cherishing every moment with the people we love. It also serves as a testament to the power of community, love, and determination in the face of unimaginable tragedy. In the visitor's book at the Memorial Garden, a recent entry captures this sentiment perfectly. I never met Molly, but her story changed my life. She reminds me to be brave, to help others, and to never take a single day for granted. Thank you, Molly, for continuing to teach us even though you're gone. Today, when the sun rises over Comins Pond, it illuminates not just the water where children once played under Molly's watchful eye, but also a memorial garden. Her spirit lives on. The pond is quiet now, no longer used for swimming. But it remains a place of profound meaning, a reminder that even in the darkest tragedies, light can emerge. Molly Anne Bish was 16 years old when her life was cut short. She had dreams of college, of marriage, of children of her own. She wanted to work with kids, to make a difference in the world, to leave it a little better than she found it. Her story reminds us that heroes come in all ages, that courage can be found in the simplest acts of service, and that love truly is stronger than death. Molly may be gone, but her light continues to shine in the work of her foundation, in the safety measures that protect other children, in the memories of those who knew her, and in the hearts of countless strangers who were moved by her story. She was a lifeguard who couldn't save herself, but who continues to save others even now. She was a teenager whose life was stolen, but whose legacy grows stronger with each passing year. She was Molly Anne Bish, and she will never be forgotten.